So now you should know how to read a stock ticker and kind of have the basic terminology associated with stocks. Let's look at ways to make money. We previously mentioned one way is you buy shares of stocks and they could pay you dividends. So they give you that cash. Often people, if you look up Warren Buffett, that was his strategy back in the day, but he would take all his dividends and buy more stock with the dividends, thus growing his investment faster. Another way is to buy low and sell high. That's a clear way to make money. So let's look at an example of how this works. We're going to look at Apple, which started, shares of Apple closed at $12.89 back April 1st, 2004. So let's pretend some investor bought 600 shares at that price and they used a broker that charged them a 2% commission. So let's first start with the amount of commission. Well, actually, what I think we really need to start with is how much money did this investor spend? Well, they purchased 600 shares and they were charged $12.89 per share. So we'll just do 600 times 12.89, and we get that they needed $7,734 to purchase those stocks. But because they were using a broker that charged a 2% commission, they needed to take 2% of that, so multiplying by 0.02, and they had to pay their broker 154.68 to execute this purchase. That means the total amount of money they needed to purchase the stock was $7,734 plus the fee for their broker. And that turns out to be they needed an investment of $7,888.68 to purchase those 600 shares. Well, that's the total cost. So this is the commission, which is question 12, and this is the total cost to execute this investment. Now, it turns out Apple became a very successful company, and sometimes what companies do when they become successful, or what they do with their stock, is they do splits. So a stock split can occur in two ways. They can increase the number of shares that are out there. In other words, a 2-for-1 split means for every one share you have, you now have two shares. There's what's also called a reverse stock split, where for every, say, 10 shares, they give you two, or something like that. So this actually happened back in February 8, 2005. There was a 2-for-1 split. And then in 2014, there was a 7-for-1 split. So let's see what happened to the number of shares that this investor purchased. So initially, they had 600 shares, and when they did a 2-for-1 split, that means that investor had their shares doubled. So in February 2005, they wake up and find that they now have 1,200 shares instead of 600. That's a doubling of their investment. Several years later, in 2014, they were then given 7-for-1. So now these 1,200 shares got multiplied by 7, and they end up with 8,400 shares total that they owned, and they only bought 600 at the beginning. So if the price of the stock also went up, this person would have tons of money. And in fact, that is what happened. Flip the page over and you'll see that on June 2015, so essentially a year after that 7-for-1 split, Apple's stock was valued at 130.28 per share. So our investor decides to sell their shares. They're going to use a brokerage that's only going to charge them 1.5 commission. Let's calculate the profit. Now, let me give you a real quick formula for how to calculate profit. Profit is equal to, how should we call this? I believe earlier it was called proceeds minus cost. So we sell the whole thing, and that's the amount of money we're given, and then we have to subtract from that the amount of money we had to pay to get it. But because there's a commission for selling as well as purchasing, we've got a little extra work to do. So let me hide this other stuff up above, and let's get how much money are we going to get when we sell these stocks. So we're going to take the $8,400, sorry, the 8,400 shares, and we're going to multiply that by the value of each share to get the value of our investment when we sell it, assuming we can find someone to buy it for 130.28. Notice this is a nice hefty number. So that's $1,094,352. That's what our stock is worth. Now, there's a problem. We don't get to keep all that money because the person that sold it for us needs their cut. So we have to take out that commission of 0.015. This ends up being the fee, so the commission fee on this is $16,415.28. Annoying, right? We have to pay someone just to sell our stuff. We want to keep that $16,000, but whatever, we won't complain too much. So that means the total amount of money that we get is we get this much handed to us. We have to pay this much to our broker, and then we have to subtract from that the $7,888.68 that we originally paid in order to buy all this. So I'll write that out in one nice line. Here's the proceeds from our sale. Here is the commission for selling. And here is the cost of our initial purchase. Make sure I got that number right. So if we just smash this in our calculator, we'll get our profit for selling. I mean, look at that. You spent this much and end up with that much. That's a huge increase in money. So let's see. I'm typing this in my calculator. I know I should be doing this in my favorite app, Desmos, but whatever. This is faster. I don't have to change screens. Oop, except I failed. There we go. Oh, double fail. What's going on here? There it is. So this investor made $1,070,048.04. That is awesome for that investor. Although in this day and age, $1 million isn't that much money in terms of retirement, etc. So the second question says, question 16 extends this and says, well, what if our investor saved by using an online trading site that just did a flat commission of $19.95 per trade, both for the original purchase and the sale? Well, if you look back at our original purchase, that means instead of a commission of $154.68, we just paid $19.95, and instead of a commission of $16,415.28, we'd pay $19.95. So let's rewrite this entire thing for number 16, and we'll take the proceeds from our sale, and we'll subtract the commission, which is twice the $19.95 because we bought and sold it, and then we'll subtract the price we would have paid for the stock at the beginning, $7,734. This will then be the total profit had we not used a broker that charged a percentage of our purchase. It's a significantly larger amount of money in my mind because $10,000 is significant to me. That's a lot of Lego. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Oh boy, I did something wrong here. Let me try again. Here we go. So that number was totally wrong. Who knows what I typed in my calculator? 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Yeah. So notice the difference between these. It's $16,000. Now you might have noticed a shortcut. We could have just added these two together and subtracted the $19.95 from that, and that would be the amount of money we saved by going through a flat fee broker. So Please do not take stock advice from me because I know not enough. But because the market has crashed recently, now is not a terrible time to buy if you have money because stock prices are low. Although, if you listen to what's going on, they're probably going to drop lower depending upon how long this COVID-19 crisis goes on.